The first time I noticed the silence between us, it wasn't dramatic. It didn't arrive with music or a warning. It was just there, settling in the room like dust I hadn't bothered to wipe away. We were sitting at her kitchen table, the small one near the window. Morning light filtered through the thin curtains, landing softly on the edge of her coffee mug. She hadn't touched it. Neither had I. The clock on the wall ticked loud enough to feel intrusive, like it knew something we didn't want to say out loud. Her name is Sarah. She was 46 when I met her. I was 26 and pretending I wasn't paying attention to the way she listened when I spoke. Really listened, like my words mattered even when I rambled or lost my point halfway through. She never rushed me. She just waited, fingers wrapped around porcelain, eyes steady but careful. That was the dangerous part. Not her age. Not the way people might look at us. It was the way she made stillness feel safe. We met because life is boring like that. Through something practical, something forgettable. I helped her with a minor repair at her place. A loose shelf. A light that flickered like it couldn't decide if it wanted to stay. She thanked me too many times. I told her it was nothing. We both lied a little. After that, I kept finding reasons to come back. She never asked. I never explained. Sometimes we talked about nothing important. Work, the weather, the neighbor's dog that barked at shadows. Sometimes we didn't talk at all. Those were the moments that stayed with me. The quiet didn't feel empty. It felt held. She had this habit of straightening things that were already straight. A stack of papers. A coaster under a glass that hadn't moved. When she was nervous, her hand would hover before touching anything, like she was asking permission from the air. I noticed because I was always watching her hands. I didn't mean to. They just told the truth faster than her mouth ever did. I talked too much around her. I knew that. Filled the space before she could decide what to say. Joked when I should have stopped. Explained myself when no one asked. She would smile, small and polite, but sometimes her eyes drifted away, toward the window, the hallway, anywhere but me. Those moments scared me more than if she'd told me to leave. Because she never did. There was a line we didn't name, but we both saw it. It sat between us like that untouched coffee, growing colder by the minute. I told myself I respected it, that I was being mature. But respect doesn't make your chest feel tight when someone stands too close. It doesn't make you memorize the sound of her footsteps or the way she said my name, slowly, like she was testing it for damage. I trusted her, not in a reckless way, in a quiet one. I trusted that if something was wrong, she'd say it. That if I was misreading things, she'd correct me. That silence meant safety. That morning, the one that keeps replaying in my head, she finally broke it. I should probably tell you something, she said, still not looking at me. My mouth opened, then closed. I nodded instead, gripping the edge of the table like it might slide away. Her phone buzzed between us before she could continue. Once, then again. She glanced down, froze. And in that pause, just a breath too long, I understood that whatever she was about to say, whatever I had trusted her not to hide, was already too late to take back. She didn't pick up the phone right away. It kept buzzing against the wood, the sound sharp and impatient, like it didn't care that it was interrupting something fragile. When she finally flipped it face down, her hand lingered there longer than necessary. "It's nothing," she said too quickly. I didn't answer. I'd learned that silence made her talk more than questions ever did. She exhaled through her nose and leaned back in the chair. For the first time since I'd known her, she looked tired in a way that wasn't physical, like she was holding something up inside her chest, and her arms were shaking. "I'm not very good at endings," she said. That was how I found out she was still married. Not in the dramatic way people confess things. No tears, no shaking voice. Just a fact dropped gently onto the table, like she was hoping it wouldn't break anything if she set it down carefully enough. "We don't live together," she added, as if that softened it. "Haven't for a while." I nodded again. I was doing a lot of that lately. Nodding, pretending I understood the shape of things when all I really felt was the floor shifting under my feet. I told her I didn't mind. I told her it didn't change anything. Both statements were only half true. I'd never been the other man. I'd never wanted to be. My past was simpler, messier in a different way. Girls my age, short relationships that burned fast and fizzled out. I was good at leaving before things got complicated. Sarah was the first person who made me want to stay even when I didn't know where staying led. She told me about her marriage the way someone talks about an old house they couldn't afford to maintain anymore. How it had once been full of noise and plans. How it slowly went quiet. How she learned to stop asking for things she already knew wouldn't be given. I don't want to hurt anyone, she said, staring at the table again. The part she didn't say was clear enough, including you. I wanted to tell her that she already had. Or maybe that she hadn't at all. That this ache in my chest wasn't pain. Just something new making room for itself. Instead, I made a joke about my generation being allergic to commitment. She smiled at that, but it didn't reach her eyes. The risky part wasn't just the ring she didn't wear anymore. It was the way I looked at her like she was the first quiet place I'd ever found. It was the way she looked at me like she was afraid of being seen wanting something. We sat there like that, the air thick with everything we weren't saying. Outside, a car passed. Somewhere down the block, a door slammed. Life kept moving, obnoxiously unconcerned with our pause. When I stood to leave, she followed me to the door. We stopped too close. I could smell her soap. Clean, faintly floral. She reached out, maybe without thinking, and smoothed a wrinkle from my sleeve. Her fingers brushed my wrist. It was nothing, barely a touch. Neither of us moved. She looked up at me then, really looked, and for a second the guilt, the caution, the distance, all of it fell quiet. In that suspended moment, with her hand still resting there like it belonged, I knew this wasn't something either of us could step away from without losing more than we admitted. Not in a dramatic way. I didn't announce it or make promises I couldn't keep. I just stopped finding excuses to come by. Answered her messages slower. Told myself it was the decent thing to do. That distance was what people chose when they didn't want to make a mess. It worked for exactly 3 days. On the 4th, she showed up where she knew I'd be. I was at the small grocery store near my apartment, staring too long at a shelf of cereal I didn't need. I heard my name and felt it before I turned, my shoulders tightening, my breath changing. She stood a few steps away, coat half-buttoned, hair pulled back like she'd done it in a hurry. I wasn't sure you'd still come here, she said. Neither was I. We walked the aisles together like strangers who shared a secret. She kept a careful distance, but every time she reached for something, our hands hovered too close. My roommate texted me while we stood near the freezers, asking if I'd be home for dinner. I didn't reply. It felt like choosing something, even though I didn't know what. Outside, the sky was darker than it should have been for that hour. Wind picked up, cold and sudden. She hugged her coat tighter around herself. Without thinking, I stepped closer, blocking the wind. She noticed. Of course she did. This is a bad idea, she said quietly. I nodded. Again. I was good at that. Her phone rang then. This time she answered. I didn't hear the voice on the other end, but I recognized the way her face changed. The careful neutrality. The practiced patience. She turned slightly away from me, lowering her voice, and I caught fragments, logistics, obligations, a question she didn't want to answer. When she hung up, she didn't put the phone away. He knows I'm out, she said. Something tightened in my chest. Does he know with who? She hesitated just long enough. No, she said. And I don't want him to. That should have been the moment I walked away. The clean exit. The adult choice. Instead, I said, okay, like I was agreeing to keep a secret that already weighed too much. We stood there, rain starting to fall in thin, impatient drops. She laughed once, breathless, like she didn't recognize herself. I don't do this, she said. I don't sneak. I don't lie. You're not lying, I said, even though we both knew the truth was getting thinner by the second. She looked at me then, really looked, and something in her cracked. Just a little. Enough to let the want show through the caution. I shouldn't be here, she whispered. I stepped closer. Not touching. Just close enough to feel her warmth, to see the way her lips parted like she was about to say my name again. She didn't move away. For a second, The world narrowed to that space between us. The rain. The breath we were both holding. My heart beating loud enough to be embarrassing. Her hand lifted, stopped inches from my chest. Then she dropped it. "I have to go," she said, already stepping back. I watched her walk away, rain soaking into her coat, and realized that pulling away didn't make the pull disappear. It just stretched it tighter, until something was bound to snap that I didn't expect jealousy to feel so quiet. It didn't come with anger or raised voices. It came in small, humiliating moments, like standing in line at a cafe a week later and seeing her across the room, laughing softly at something a man my age said to her. His hand rested on the back of her chair like it belonged there. She didn't move it away. I left before she saw me. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying the way she'd stepped back in the rain, the way she'd said "I have to go" like it was a rule carved into her bones. I told myself I had no right to feel anything. No claim. No title. Still, my chest felt tight in a way that didn't care about logic. She texted me the next morning. "Are you okay? You've been quiet." I stared at the screen for a long time before replying. "Just busy." Another lie. Smaller than the others. Still heavy. 2 days later, she came to my apartment. No warning. No explanation. Just a knock that startled me enough to spill coffee on the counter. When I opened the door, she stood there holding her keys like she might drop them, eyes too bright, posture stiff like she'd practiced standing that way in the car. "I shouldn't be here," she said immediately. "You keep saying that," I replied. She flinched. Not dramatically, just enough to notice. Inside, the apartment felt smaller than usual. Too quiet. My roommate was out. The air carried that awkward tension of a place not meant for this kind of conversation. She didn't take her coat off. Just stood there, like she was waiting for permission to exist. "I saw you," I said before I could stop myself. Her eyebrows pulled together. "Saw me where?" "The cafe. With him." She looked away, jaw tightening. "He's a friend." "Of course he is." The silence stretched. I hadn't meant for my voice to sound like that. Sharper. Hurt leaking through the edges. She crossed her arms, a reflex I recognized now. Defensive, contained. "You don't get to do that," she said quietly. "I know," I said. "That's kind of the problem." She stepped closer, then stopped. That invisible line again. Her voice dropped. "This isn't fair to you." Something in me snapped, not loudly, but completely. "Then stop coming back," I said. "Stop texting. Stop looking at me like you're about to say something, and then swallowing it." Her breath caught. She opened her mouth, closed it, then finally said, "I think about you more than I should." The room felt like it tilted. "I tell myself it's harmless," she continued, "that it's just attention, a distraction. But then you pull away and I—" She stopped, pressing her lips together, eyes glistening but controlled. "I don't like who I am when I miss you." I took a step toward her. She didn't move back this time. "I don't want to be the reason you feel guilty," I said. "You're not," she replied immediately. Too immediately. "You're the reason I feel honest." Her hand lifted, trembling slightly, hovering near my chest again like before. I could feel her without touching her. The heat, the hesitation, everything unsaid pressed into that inch of space between us. Outside, a door slammed somewhere in the building. Footsteps echoed. Real life, intruding. She swallowed. "If I stay any longer—" She didn't finish the sentence. Neither of us moved. And in that suspended second, with her breath shallow and my heart pounding, I knew whatever happened next would change everything. Whether we crossed the line or finally broke away from it. She pulled her hand back. Not dramatically. Just enough to remind us both that control was still possible, if she wanted it badly enough. "I can't," she said. "I really can't." Then she left. No argument. No tears. Just the sound of the door closing, soft but final, like a decision she'd been practicing for years. I stood there longer than I should have, staring at the empty space she'd occupied, my chest buzzing like something had been ripped out and left sparking. I didn't hear from her for 8 days. Not a text. Not a call. Nothing. I told myself that was it. that she'd chosen the responsible ending, the one where no one gets hurt because nothing ever really happens. I tried to return to my old routines. Work, gym, late dinners eaten standing up. It all felt like cardboard. On the 9th day, I got a voicemail. Her voice sounded different. Lower. Tighter. "I need to tell you something," she said. And I should have done it sooner. I called back immediately. Straight to voicemail. That's how I found out she was moving. Not from her, but from my roommate, who mentioned it casually while scrolling his phone. "Hey, isn't this your friend?" he asked, turning the screen toward me. It was a listing. Her house. Photos of the kitchen table. The window. The chair she always chose. The caption said available immediately. My stomach dropped. When I finally got her on the phone, she didn't pretend anymore. "He asked me to come back," she said. "To try again." I sat on the edge of my bed, phone pressed too hard against my ear. And I said yes. The word landed wrong. Too clean. Too final. "I'm selling the house," she continued. "It's easier that way. New start. Less temptation." Temptation. That's what I was now. A thing to remove. "You didn't tell me," I said. "I didn't trust myself to," she replied. "If I heard your voice, I might not go." There it was. The honesty she'd warned me about. I wanted to be angry. To accuse her of using me. Of letting me believe in something that was never real. Instead, I felt something colder settle in my chest. "Did you ever mean it?" I asked. "Any of it?" She didn't answer right away. When she did, her voice broke. Not enough to be dramatic, just enough to hurt. That's why this is so hard. After the call ended, I sat there in the quiet, realizing the trust I'd given her hadn't been misplaced. It had just been incomplete. She hadn't lied about how she felt. She'd lied about what she was willing to do with it. That night, I did something I hadn't planned. I went to her house. The lights were off. A moving truck was parked out front, half-loaded. Boxes stacked on the lawn like evidence. I stood across the street, hands in my pockets, telling myself I wouldn't cross that distance. Then I saw her through the window, sitting at the table. The same one, phone in her hand. Not packing, not moving, just sitting there, shoulders slumped, staring at the screen like she was waiting for something, or someone, to stop her. I stepped off the curb, and my phone buzzed in my pocket at the exact same moment. A text from her. "If you come here, I don't know if I'll be strong enough to leave." I stopped in the middle of the street, heart pounding, realizing the twist wasn't that she'd chosen him. It was that she was still choosing, and whatever happened next would ruin the version of safe we'd both been hiding behind that I didn't answer the text. I crossed the street instead. Every step felt like I was doing something irreversible, like the ground should have given way under my feet if this was really such a bad idea. The porch light flicked on before I reached the door. She must have been watching. That thought hit harder than any accusation could have. She opened the door before I knocked. Up close, she looked undone. Not messy, just stripped of the careful control she always wore. Her hair wasn't pinned back. Her eyes were red, but dry, like she'd already used up whatever tears she'd allowed herself. "I told you not to come," she said. "You told me you wouldn't be strong enough if I did," I replied. She stepped back, letting me in. That was the choice. Small, quiet, final. The house smelled like cardboard and dust. Half her life boxed up and labeled in black marker. I wanted to hate that version of her, the one ready to disappear to make things easier. But she stood there twisting her fingers together, and all I felt was how close she was to breaking. "I'm doing the right thing," she said, more to herself than to me. "For who?" I asked. She looked away. "For everyone. Everyone except you," I said. "And maybe except me." She closed her eyes like that landed somewhere painful. "You don't understand how much I could lose." "I do," I said quietly. "I just don't think losing yourself should be the price." That did it. Her shoulders sagged. Years of restraint loosened all at once. "I stayed too long in a marriage that stopped seeing me," she said. "I told myself wanting more was selfish. Then you came along and suddenly I felt." She stopped, laughing softly, bitter. "I felt young in a way that scared me. I stepped closer. You didn't imagine it. Her eyes lifted to mine. Searching. Vulnerable. No escape left. I trusted you, I added. Not because I thought you'd choose me, but because I thought you'd choose honesty. She nodded slowly. I am choosing it. Right now. She reached out and finally touched me. Not hovering this time. Not pulling back. Her palm flat against my chest, feeling my heartbeat like she needed proof. I can't go back, she whispered. If I do, I'll always wonder what kind of life I gave up just to feel safe. The silence between us wasn't awkward anymore. It was heavy, alive. I leaned in, stopping just short of her mouth, giving her space she didn't have to take. This doesn't fix everything, I said. It doesn't make it easy. I know, she replied, but it makes it real. That was the moment, not the kiss, though it came, slow and unpracticed, like neither of us wanted to rush something that had cost this much. The moment was her hand tightening in my shirt, like she'd decided not to let go again. Later, we sat on the floor among half-packed boxes, backs against the couch, not talking much. The future was still unclear, complicated, unapproved by everyone who wasn't us. But she rested her head on my shoulder, and I stayed. For the first time, she wasn't choosing fear. And I understood then that trusting her hadn't been my biggest mistake. It was the only reason we were here, together, finally not pretending that walking away would hurt less than telling the truth. The moving truck never came back the next morning. I noticed because I woke up before her, light leaking in through the bare window where the curtains used to hang. The house felt different without all the careful arrangements. No stacks of boxes pretending to be temporary. No checklist taped to the fridge. Just space. Quiet. Breath. She was asleep on her side, facing me, one hand curled near her chest like she was still guarding something even in rest. I watched her longer than I should have. Not because I was afraid she'd disappear, but because I needed to let it settle in that she hadn't. When she opened her eyes, she didn't smile right away. She just looked at me, studying my face like she was checking for regret. Morning, I said. Morning, she replied, her voice rough, honest. We didn't pretend everything was solved. That would have been a lie. The world outside that house hadn't magically softened overnight. There were conversations coming. Consequences. People who wouldn't understand, maybe never would. But something fundamental had shifted. Over coffee, fresh this time, actually hot, she told me she'd called her husband before dawn. Not to argue, not to explain everything, just to say she wasn't coming back, that she was done choosing comfort over truth. I didn't blame you, she said quietly. I told him that. I nodded, my throat tight. Thank you. She reached across the table, her fingers brushing mine. No hesitation now. No hovering. Just contact. We talked about practical things after that, where I'd stay, how she'd handle the house, the awkward math of blending lives that started at different chapters. Sometimes we laughed at how absurd it all sounded when said out loud. Sometimes the room went quiet again, but the silence felt earned, not avoided. Later, while she packed away the last of the boxes, not to leave, but to put them back where they belonged, she paused and looked at me. You know, she said, people will say this was a mistake. I leaned against the doorway. Was it? She thought about it. Really thought. Then shook her head. No, she said. It was a risk. There's a difference. I know that now. Loving her didn't make my life simpler. It made it sharper, more exposed. I stopped hiding behind being young and flexible, stopped pretending that caring deeply was something you grow out of. And she stopped shrinking herself to fit into a version of life that no longer wanted her. Trusting her hadn't protected me from pain. It had asked me to stand inside it without armor. And still, I would do it again. Because sometimes the biggest mistake isn't trusting someone too much. It's trusting fear more than the truth in front of you. So here we are. Not perfect, not approved, but honest, and choosing each other in ways that actually count. And if you were in my place, standing at that edge, would you walk away to stay safe, or stay and risk everything? Would you trust the quiet pull that won't leave you alone?